Hey, it's Chad here. Welcome into another episode of A Level Deeper. I'm going to venture a guess that most of you listening have never heard of the town of Quincy, Illinois. In fact, if I were to hand you a map and say, go ahead, try to point it out, you might not be able to. Well, if you are from the town of Quincy, Illinois, I'm going to venture a guess that you have heard of and are well aware of my guest today, Roy Webb. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you don't have to be from the town of Quincy, Illinois and know who Roy Webb is in order to find his perspectives and the many lessons that he's learned very interesting and valuable. After 34 years of serving our country in the military, Roy decided to become an educator and head into the world of education, where he became a teacher and then later became the superintendent of a district in the Quincy public school system. This is one of those conversations where it's not just Roy's story and what he's done that is interesting, and it is interesting. He's got lots of great stories, and the way that he has approached his career and his work is incredibly interesting, and he's learned a lot of things from his time in the military that I think you're going to find are fascinating. It's not just those things, though. It's not the fact that Roy tried to retire 2 years ago, and in his retirement became a bus driver and a blackjack dealer and has tried all of these different little jobs and careers. It's not necessarily about those things either. It's that Roy Webb is a man of principle. He is a man of respect, a man of dignity. And it's the different things that he has learned throughout his life that come across in this conversation that really stood out to me and that I found really meaningful in chatting with him. Roy was introduced to me by a mutual friend named Jean, and she had sent me Roy's social media, his Facebook page in particular. And I mean, you can immediately see he's got these fun posts, and we'll talk about some of it in this episode, but this is a very well-respected person. I could tell that right off the bat. Well-respected in his community. And I'm interested in those people. I want to know their stories, and I want to know how they approach life. And so anyway, you're going to hear more about Roy in this conversation, and I think you're going to really enjoy his perspectives on life, some of the life lessons that he shares, and in many ways, his approach, his unique way of making life meaningful. In fact, I don't think you're going to like it. I know you're going to like it. Oh, and you've got to be sure to stick around because August 8th of 2024 was a very unique day, and you got to hear Roy tell you about what that day was. All right, it's all next. Here's my conversation with Roy Webb. This is a very casual show. I've been doing this for over a year, and it's been special for me to just connect with new people and have meaningful conversations. I called the show A Level Deeper because I get bored of surface level conversations. I don't really want to talk about sports all the time or the weather or whatever it may be. I'm looking to, understand people's stories and experiences. And so it's been really cool for me to just connect with people. That results in a very casual show. I don't have a set list of questions that I plan to ask you. I'll at least ask you questions to get us started. But by all means, I hope that this is a conversation. And if you want to throw any questions or anything back at me, I always welcome that. Do you have any questions for me before we jump into it? It's really meant to be just a conversation between two new friends. But that's my intention for the hour.
Yeah, no, I've listened to a few of your broadcasts. They're very interesting. I just don't know if a conversation with me will be that interesting, but we'll give it a shot, I guess.
It will be. It will be. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I find myself, I'm drawn to people who are well respected, and we don't know each other. We just met about 5-10 minutes ago. From what I have seen on some of your social media, from what I have heard from our mutual friend, Jean, you seem like someone who is very well respected. And I like talking to well-respected people because I guess that feels important to me. I aspire to be someone who is well respected with
within my family, within my own home, within my community. Is that something that is important to you? Is that something that's intentional? Do you see yourself in that same way?
Well, I will tell you that, first of all, it's important to me. Of course, you want to be respected by everybody. And I think you gain that by showing respect to everybody. And hopefully I do. But I will tell you, in Quincy, where Gene is the food service director, it's neat that you're saying I'm well respected, but I'm probably and a little before your time. But Howard Cosell, they did in TV Guide, also before your time, but they did a survey and they asked who's the most loved broadcaster, sports broadcaster, and who's the most hated, and he won both sides. So I think in Quincy, I may be on both sides of that. At one time, I was probably one of the most loved people in town and respected, and probably one of the most hated people in town as well too. So, but it was an interesting time during COVID, that's for sure.
Was that maybe the turning point? Not the turning point, but is that the point that made you say that there was both maybe some of the love and admiration and some of the maybe not so much?
Absolutely. And snow days. I mean, in the Midwest, you have snow days, and my social media following grew quite a bit during snow days. It's just simply because people wanted to get in and watch as I got crushed by some high school kids and parents because we would have school or we wouldn't have school if it started to snow. So that was probably the start.
It's interesting. I think I had heard it said one time that if half of the country hates you, that would maybe make you the president of the United States. Meaning, in some ways being a sort of polarizing figure. If you have people who really like you and admire you and respect you, and if you have people that don't like you, not that it has to mean that like you're going to rise to power, but to me, what that also signifies is you stand for something. In order to have people dislike some of the things about you or things that you've done, well, that means that you had to put your foot in the ground or plant a flag and say, you know what, this is what I believe is right, and this is how we're going to do things. Is that what happened?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when you're in a position where you make decisions, no matter if you try to get everybody's opinion and garner a consensus, anytime you make decisions, big decisions, you're going to have people disagree with you. So it's something, if you're going to be a decision maker or a person who is in some sort of position where you're making decisions, that's something that you got to be prepared for. And I think in the world today, it's something that you have to not only be prepared for, but prepare yourself for, because you're going to, you got to deal with social media and everything else, because everybody's going to let you know their opinion nowadays.
That is true. How do you process or deal with some of that potential criticism that comes your way? You were the superintendent of a school district, right?
Right. Yes.
And that's in a community, that's a very public facing figure that, as you said, can easily be the target of lots of praise and lots of criticism. How did you process all of that? And maybe more specifically, how did you separate some of that criticism from, criticism of Roy, the human being, versus criticism of Roy, the superintendent? If you're listening to this, it's estimated you'll spend roughly 90,000 hours working in your lifetime. That's 1/3 of your entire life. If you're anything like me, you've probably asked, what am I working for? Maybe you've thought about quitting your job, changing careers, altering your relationship to work, or trying not to let your work rule your life. And if that's the case, this series is for you. Hi, I'm Chad Miles, and welcome to my new mini-series on A Level Deeper podcast, What Are We Working For? In this series and over the next few episodes, we'll explore some of the biggest questions and topics behind our working lives. Things like, what led to this work-obsessed culture being created in the first place?
So for me, this goes all the way back to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution.
Do other countries view work the same way we do in America?
In Japan, it's less about pride, but more about a necessity.
Should your work make you happy or just make you money?
Like I said, job's just paying the bills. As long as the lights don't go out, I'm good.
Should you quit your job?
When I came home from work, I was crying.
Is it good advice to turn your passion into your career?
I didn't ever think I would end up here, but I truly love my job.
And how the heck does this retirement thing fit into all of this?
I don't, and that's why the first question I ask someone is, what does retirement look like for you?
In this series, I'll chat with experts, coaches, and everyday people who share their unique stories and perspectives on work. Through the lens of their experiences, I hope we're all getting clarity on how we want our work to fit into our lives, so that ultimately we can answer for ourselves, what are we working for? The series starts Tuesday, October 15th, only on a Level Deeper podcast.
Well, first of all, I think I had to I had to make sure my decisions, I felt good about my decisions, or, I would work hard on the decisions, especially big decisions or public decisions. And, you do all your homework, you get the consensus. I surround myself with very intelligent people that will question me. So before decisions were usually made, they had been vetted, and I felt real good about the decisions I made. The simple thing, like a snow day. I talked to the transportation director. I talked to the local weather forecasters. I would talk to the road commissioners, and so we had a good understanding. Our buses would be safe. Kids would be able to get to school. And we wanted to have school if at all possible. But some high school seniors were very upset that they had to have school that day. So they would hop online, and I understood that. That was kind of a funny situation and got to be a joke. You can still Google online. I think Mr. Webb reacts to mean tweets because our high school media class actually brought me in, and I had to read the tweets that they had placed online and then comment on them. And it was a kind of a, as people, crushed me for having a school day on a snow day, what they thought should have been a snow day. It was just kind of a fun exchange. But and I very rarely, I didn't really, you kind of deal with it with some humor and some fun. People that disagree with you are upset. But when they attack you personally, it does get a little more difficult. During COVID, even though we were in school, as soon as we could be in school, as soon as we were given the option, we had to have safety measures in place, like masks, like quarantine if a student came in contact with someone else. And it was very unpopular decisions are some of our safety procedures. So when they start saying that, you're hurting you're hurting kids on purpose, or, I was also in the military for quite a while. So they said, you're going against your constitutional oath as an Army officer. They knew how to get to me. And some of those things hurt. But during the time, you just kind of, it's just those few individuals or whatever. But, it wears on you when you make decisions and you get those personal attacks like that. It's tough, but as a leader today, that's something that you're going to have to be prepared to take on. I see, everybody running for Congress and everybody running for political office, they take it. And boy, man, I read some of the, some people that I think are very popular and just doing what they think is right for their country or for our district. And if they read their posts or they read some of their comments underneath there, I feel for them because it's a tough time.
It is. It's hard. And, I think you remind me of it's often, it's not the case in every situation, but it can often be the very loud minority where 97% of people could support the decisions that you're making, but you get that 3% or whatever it may be. And they're very vocal. They're very loud. They have very strong opinions. I find myself, I host a show like this. I am in the public spotlight. Now, albeit it's not like this is some massive show that reaches millions of people. And still, there are times where people are like, hey, I don't like something. I find myself at times struggling to kind of separate someone's thoughts or opinions or feedback from my own kind of thoughts and opinions about myself. I found that can be challenging. It sounds like at times, maybe that's been the same for you too.
It was. And you grow up, I grew up in a system with feedback, right? So, you listen to everybody, and even if they disagree with you, and you try to learn from them. So that may have been my problem. I tried to listen to everybody initially. So, and sometimes when you get to a certain place or position, you just need to have some of that just roll off and don't worry about it. It's tough. I think it's tough for everybody.
How did you go about deciphering who are the people that you should be listening to? Who are the people that, whose opinions you really value and that you take into consideration, and who, not that you would ignore, I don't think that's the right word, but who, you're willing to kind of say, I see your opinion, I hear your opinion, and you know what, ultimately, like, it's not valuable to me. I don't know. How do you discern that?
Well, I've learned very early. I've been, like I said, in the military. I grew up in the military in leadership positions throughout. I was in the military for 36 years. In public education, I was a school superintendent for 18 years. I would say the one thing that helped me the most was surrounding myself with extremely intelligent people and people with high character. In the Army, we have the Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. And I look for those values in everybody that I had the opportunity to hire or the opportunity to place on my team. And people that were already on my team, I look for them to follow those same values. And I was blessed to be on amazing teams for my life. And that really helps you out because you start to build that trust and you start to build that team. And I think those are the first people I really listened to were the people on the close-knit team. And then in Quincy, we had 1,100 staff, and I trusted them and I listened to them. And then, the close group of directors and principals and even union leaders that were talking to me on a daily basis. They knew me extremely well. They knew that I was going to pout from time to time and I was going to be upset from time to time about what they said. But they also knew I would listen to them and I would value their input. And hopefully I set up an atmosphere where they could disagree with me and say, hey, you're stupid here. This is not the right way to handle this. And literally, some of them would use that type of language. And I was good with that because sometimes they had to be very blunt with me. And I appreciated those type of things. So I think that close-knit group, and then anybody you trust and you gain trust in, that helps. And it helped that they trusted me as well, too, that I could be just as blunt with them or just as straightforward with them. Or if I walked them through the decision and why I was making that decision, and they had, even though sometimes they disagreed, they said, okay, I understand that. This is something that you feel you have to do. We could drive on and in disagreement still be best friends or, still, have breakfast together or whatever. So I think those are the people you look at most, is people on your team. And then as far as the public too, it's still those people you trust and have gained trust in. You have to have some sort of relationship. I had a friend, someone that mentored me. One of the first lessons he taught me was relationships count. So building those relationships right away when you meet someone or bring them onto the team or want to be on their team, it's building a relationship with them.
You talked about this idea of disagreement. It feels like to me the the ability to disagree, to respectfully disagree, is both sort of an art and like a skill that you can develop. It also feels like we seem to be at a time as a society where we've lost some of this art to be able to respectfully disagree with one another. You know, say, hey, I think this idea is stupid. And someone say back to you, yeah, well, I think your idea is stupid too. And then say, you know what, but I respect you. All right, let's go have lunch together. I mean, it feels like that has become more difficult. Are you seeing that as well? Are you seeing a society that struggles to disagree in that sort of productive way?
Yeah, but I still have some faith though, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this too, because you talk to a lot of different people, and you're, you know, building podcasts, and you have opinions out there. But I still, like you had said earlier, 3% of the people out there, you know, cause a lot of the hate and discontent, and they go after you. I'm hopeful that it's still a small percentage that uh, if you disagree with them, they're immediately your enemy. And I think, and I'm hopeful. I'm still hopeful for America that there is some situation out there where we can come together and be unified. You know, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, and I think it is. We're an extremely diverse country, and if we go into our camps and don't talk to each other anymore, it's going to be a difficult few years. So hopefully, you know, I don't talk about, you know, my political views, but hopefully whoever wins, you know, in a few weeks, things settle down a bit, but and then we start coming together as a country and having some of those discussions and disagreements and figuring things out where we can figure things out. So hopefully that occurs. We'll see. I think social media we're still trying to learn how to use that resource. And when people can get on and just say or do anything that they want within that realm and just attack and attack and attack, it causes divides sometimes, instead of because that's just someone spewing on a keyboard instead of listening to someone and having a conversation.
Well, and that to me, Roy, has been exactly my experience. You know, it feels very easy to I have a friend who uses the term keyboard warriors, and it's really easy to be a keyboard warrior when you can hop on your computer in the safety of your own home and you can type something on social media, and the other person on the receiving end of that is somewhere, you know, maybe hundreds or thousands of miles away. And there's just a disconnect of me saying something and person receiving that thing when we're using the internet as the means of communication. Now, what I have experienced through this show, and one of the reasons that I really enjoy doing this, is that I find it really hard to engage in a meaningful one-on-one conversation with someone. You know, a substantive conversation where we're sitting down, we're dedicating an hour, and over the course of a conversation, we may disagree on some points or some topics, but when we're interacting face-to-face, we're taking time to speak, we're taking time to listen. It's really hard to, you know, just attack someone's personal character or yell or scream at someone. Like this has proven to me that we are very capable of having these types of meaningful conversations. And when we dedicate time to try to understand somebody, I think it's really easy to find common ground. It's easy to see that, oh, you know what? We're both humans, and we might have different experiences that we've been through in life that shape some of our perspective, but at the end of the day, let's shake hands, let's hug, whatever it may be. And we're all humans. We're all trying to do our best. That's been my experience. This format is sort of undefeated. This is the way that communication works best.
Absolutely. And I've listened to some of your conversations, and they are great. I will tell you, though, the point is, people don't have the conversations anymore sometimes. Like, they have a poor experience at a restaurant. Instead of, you know, talking with the manager of the restaurant or whatever, they'll go home and they'll type on their review saying, "Oh, I just had an awful experience." And from time to time, we had that in the school districts as well too. Someone would be upset about what a teacher did or what I did, and instead of giving me a call, and everybody had my cell number in Quincy, or giving their teacher a call, they would get online and immediately, "This is awful. A school district shouldn't do this." Have that conversation first. I would guess 95, 99% of the time, you're going to come to some sort of consensus if everybody, cares about the child. Or I guarantee you that manager of that restaurant wants his restaurant to have good reviews. So he's going to do something to correct that situation. If you have that conversation, I think we can correct a lot of things, but sometimes we can't wait to get back and be that keyboard warrior.
It's a great point. I mean, just like you said, I think sometimes it just comes down to you've got to give people the chance. You've got to engage someone, and it's the hard part. Yeah, sometimes the conflict can be uncomfortable, but boy, when handled appropriately by both sides, it can sure be productive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're the second person I've had on the show who has a military background, and then that has transitioned into working in education. I first want to understand, 36 years of service. Thank you for your service to our country. Tell me about that journey. Why was entering the military something that appealed to you?
Well, actually joining the military, a friend of mine got me in. It was to get a little college money and, goof off with him a little bit. But he left like right after I joined, which I appreciated that. But I love the culture. I loved the learning. I loved the opportunities that it gave me, and just had a blast in the military. I was in the Iowa National Guard, so for 36 years. And, I had a chance to deploy a few times, had a chance to lead some amazing soldiers and be a part of some amazing teams. So visited 42 different countries, and none of them great, beautiful spots like, the Air Force and the Navy go to. I mean, the Army always picks the worst spots in the world to have conflicts or whatever. But it was just an amazing experience, and it taught me so much, value-wise. You're around so many different leaders and around so many different great individuals. It really does change you as a person, and it changed me, and it prepared me so much for opportunities I had outside of the military. So I joined for some kicks and giggles and a little college money, and it made me into the person I am today, basically. So
it's always funny to me how nothing replaces time in perspective to be able to look back and to see that. But it's funny how what feels like a rather inconsequential decision at the time leads you down a 36-year journey and path, which then influences what you do later in life. And I just find it's meaningful sometimes to reflect with people who have more life experience, because you just have more to reflect on and to point to. And it's like, wow, how neat is it that seemingly small decision at that time completely changed the path and trajectory of your life?
Absolutely. Yeah. And decisions we make every day, always impact us, a little further down the line. So I think I've learned that. And I think that's why I'm having difficulty making decisions now, to tell you the truth, in retirement. So it's, I suck at retirement. I think it's because I know that next decision I make is going to impact, the next 10, 20 years. I can't get past that decisions I've made in the past have impacted me. So.
Okay. I want to come back to you said I suck at retirement, and we'll get to that stage of your life here in a bit. So I'm going to put a pin in that and come back to it. You talked about, learning so much from your time in the military. I'm curious about some of whether they be lessons that you learned or maybe things that you learned about yourself from all these experiences. You mentioned 36 years of service, 42 countries that you traveled to. I've got to imagine you went through so many different things and experiences. What were some of the things that you took away from your time in the military?
Oh, I mean, the Army or the military is always teaching you the whole time you're in service. So you're right. You learn, and the Army understands this, that you're going to learn about yourself. You had mentioned that you learn a lot of things about yourself. And all the lessons that I've carried forward, a lot of them I've already talked about. Surrounding yourself with great people, character is key in not only your life, but if you're going to ever lead, you better be trusted by the people that you're leading. So, having values and having character, having integrity, those are key pieces. And then, small things too, like, I knew today started at 4:00. So I was on waiting for you for about 15 minutes because I'm never late. And if Jean, our mutual friend, she will let you know that I was never late. I'm always sitting there ahead of time. If I had a meeting with a kindergartner, that was set at a certain time, or if I had a meeting with the mayor at a certain time, I was there probably early. And my board president used to joke around with me. He says, yeah, Roy, being on time is critical, but a minute is okay. You don't have to be sitting there 10 minutes early. That's a waste of time. So he was, that's because he used to walk into the meetings just as they were occurring, always on time, because he knew that I expected meetings to start on time. But, I had my first squad leader said, hey, if you're late, Roy, people die. And in the military, that could be the case. If you have to meet an SP or a start point, and if you're not there on time with the resources that you're supposed to have, you may be letting someone else down significantly. So it's just part of the military culture that you're there on time. And so I learned to do that. I learned to eat fast. I learned, I learned to sleep in the worst places. And I learned to appreciate the things that I have. I learned to appreciate my family. I learned to appreciate time with my family. I learned to appreciate a nice bed and a roof over my, because when sometimes you don't have those things in the military. So a lot of great memories and friends I'll have for a lifetime. So, but you learn a lot in the military. You learn every day. And people say, well, a lot of the young people today, they need to be in the military. We should bring the draft back. That's the last thing the military wants, right? We want people who want to be there. We don't want just a draft where everybody is brought into the military, because it's not the lifestyle for everybody. It's, where, you're not always greeted with a pleasantry, hey, could you please do this for us? It's usually based upon order, right? Yeah. Get your blank over there and get it done. So that's the culture.
I mean, 36 years, what was it that kept you coming back or appealed to you? As I was thinking about asking that question, I was going to say it's hard for me to imagine 36 years, but then I'm only 30 years old, so I literally can't imagine 36 years because I haven't experienced life that long. Tell me about what was it that appealed to you about your time serving that kept you coming back?
Well, the Army's a little different. That 36 years, you're right. It's a long time, especially to a 30-year-old. And I talk to a lot of young people that are going into the military, and Mr. Webb, I'm not going to go 36 years. You'll be surprised how long you go. But first of all, you're not doing the same thing for 36 years. It's such, I had so many different jobs, so many different positions, both leadership and in sport. And, you're in different places, different locations, you're on different teams, and you're learning from each of them. What a great learning experience to go through on a continual basis. It's constantly changing. And I think, that I really appreciated that. And then I found myself doing that on the civilian side too, where, I was a teacher, then a coach and an athletic director and a principal and a superintendent. And then I went to a superintendent of a bigger district and then a superintendent of a bigger district. uh, you know, I, I each of my superintendencies was about 6 or 7 years, and then I felt I had reached a point where I had done everything for the district, and maybe it would be better. And I always try to do what was best for the district. That I leave, and then they have new thoughts, and that's the Army system too, where a commander doesn't stay in a command for 2 to 4 years. In the National Guard, we did about 4 years because it's usually 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. But on active duty, they do about a 2-year command. That's new blood comes in, new excitement, and then that person moves on to something bigger and better. So 36 years, but I was never in one assignment more than 3 or 4 years. So it's not like I was doing the same thing the whole time.
That makes sense. It's also interesting, that idea of like kind of come in, make your mark, and then go on and do the next thing, move up. So that's a very military oriented way of thinking. That's pretty traditional within the military.
Right. And I will tell you, the great part of that is having such pride in the organizations I left, and that they were successful and even better without me. That was just that was the best part of what I experienced. And I will tell you, even on the education side, I look at my superintendencies, all 3 locations I was superintendent at. The superintendent that's there now was someone I mentored, or someone that was a part of my team. I don't know if I taught them anything, but and they are being so successful, from the little school district to the medium-sized school district to even Quincy Public Schools, a larger school district in Illinois. All of them had someone that was on my team, and they're doing amazing. And the districts are better, and I just extremely happy about that. And even in the military, I see now that like the director of the joint, or the assistant adjutant general for the state of Iowa, is someone that was on my team, and he could be adjutant general, the guy in charge of the entire Iowa Guard at some point. And I see a lot of other, a lot of colonels, lieutenant colonels that were young officers on my team, and they're doing so well. And that's the thing that you take a lot of great pride in, is when the organization, as you leave, is better and flourishing. I just that just tickles me beyond belief.
I can only imagine how meaningful it would be to see people that you, I'm sure, have had some sort of impact on, going and doing, new and sort of better things. I mean, I've got to imagine that's incredibly meaningful. Why the education system when you left the military and you were choosing your next path, your next chapter? Why education?
I will tell you, I thought I could do anything I wanted to do. I really did. I thought I could be a medical doctor. I thought I could be an engineer. And some of my medical doctor friends and engineer friends wouldn't believe that I did have that ability. But I chose to teach, and at that time, coach. I wanted to be an athletic coach. I wanted to coach a football team or a basketball team, and so I did that. So I started off as a middle school teacher and coach, and I love that. I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed working with kids, and started doing that and coached. I was the losingest coach in Aledo school district history. I think I have over 100 losses. I coached football. We did pretty well. I was an assistant coach there, so we had a head coach helping us out. But I was girls basketball coach, and we lost a lot of games. There were maybe some games we didn't even get past the half court line, but I just had a blast doing that, working with the young ladies, working with the young men in that capacity. I was an English teacher, which a lot of people would, after they hear me talk, oh, no way, you're not an English teacher. They thought maybe I'd be a PE teacher. Not to say anything bad about PE teachers or anything, but that if they had to guess, they would guess that. But and then Just wanted to be around kids and make an impact there. And it was a great decision for me. And then as I was growing up in the military, more leadership assignments, I saw more impact you could make. I wanted to do that on the education side. So that's why I went back, became an administrator, and still around kids. If you talk with the teachers from my school districts, I think they will tell you that I was constantly in the classrooms. That's the part of the job I loved. I wanted every kid in the district to recognize me and and say, "Hey, Mr. Webb." That was something that I really look forward to, or those greetings in the hallway from the students. That they knew me and I knew a little bit about them. So.
Roy, it's cool to hear your stories. I have a little bit of a front row seat. My mom works in education. Shout out to my mom, Lisa. She she is a student and family specialist in a school district in Michigan, and it's just been really neat to kind of see through her lens and through her experiences the impact that people in the education system can have on kids, on students. I mean, I think it was just last year around this time she had gotten a Facebook message from someone that she had worked with in a group, 15 years ago. And there was like one thing that she had said when this girl was having a really hard day, and my mom had just said one thing. And anyway, that girl ended up making a sticky note with what my mom said, laminating it and putting it on, her mirror. And she's had it with her for 15 years now, and just sent my mom a Facebook message saying, I just want to let you know that what you said to me that day has stuck with me and affected my life and changed it for the better. And so anyway, it's just, I really have an appreciation for my mom, people like you who are in our education system, because you really can have a huge impact. And I think back to some of the teachers that I've had throughout my lifetime, and you really learn a lot, and you really can be changed and impacted from these meaningful interactions from people who, like yourself, really want to invest into kids. And that seems like that's kind of at the heart of what propelled you.
I love teachers, and I hope we get a chance to talk about that a little bit, because they're amazing individuals. Despite what anybody says, they're not here to indoctrinate. They don't have time to do that. They're there. They love kids. They want to nurture kids. They want to do what's best for kids. A good teacher is an amazing asset, and I want to keep that. But I want to come back to making memories, and it's amazing what kids remember, because I wasn't the best. I taught fourth grade for a few years, and wasn't the best teacher. I would often cancel spelling, and we would go out and play kickball. So I was a very popular teacher, even though I wasn't very good at it. But we would have some kickball games, and the kids were great. But typical fourth graders, I have a fourth grade boy, Alex. I remember him specifically, but he got super mad because I called. I was the pitcher for both teams, and then I was also the umpire.
Sure.
So I called out. He was out, and Alex got so upset. He was just, "There's no way I was out, Mr. Webb. I was safe. I was there in time." He was just going off. I said, "Alex, here's the deal. You were out. I called it, but it's not a big deal. You're not going to remember this, 10 years from now when you graduate. If you remember this 10 years from now and you call me before your graduation, I'm going to give you $50. And I will tell you, the day he graduated, he did. He got a hold of me on social media. He said, "Hey, Mr. Webb, you remember that kickball game that you said you would give me $50 if I remembered it?" And I said, "Yes, Alex, I do remember that." But he said, "I remember that play, and I was safe, and you owe me $50. So it's amazing what kids remember. But I did send him the $50.
I'll tell you, an 18-year-old, $50 is a lot. So you'll definitely go back into the memory bank if you can earn a quick $50.
Yes. So your mom was, you said she was a family support liaison type of person, or so
Yeah.
she works with not only the students but also the families.
Right. And
is she enjoying that? Because we've placed people in those positions really just recently, over the last 5 years in education. That's been kind of an assignment that's pretty well established in Illinois, but we've seen some great impact by those individuals as well too. Is she enjoying that assignment?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, similar to what you were just talking about, and it's why I thought about her, is that she was in that role, in a particular school or going between a couple of different schools, and she was doing that for about 8 years. And this school year, she accepted a new role, and that was one of her goals, is like, okay, I can impact students at one school, but if I go up into maybe more of the administration side of things, can I have a larger impact on more kids and on more people throughout the district? And so now she's involved in all of the kind of social and emotional learning curriculum throughout the entire district. And it's funny, she was not sure if she was going to like it, because she loved working with kids. She would work with like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and just, would have all these stories and really enjoyed connecting with them. And she is really enjoying it. She's really enjoying this new role. She still gets to see the kids. She's still in the schools, and the impact that she gets to have is just, it's greater. So she found it to be really, really meaningful, and so it just reminded me of her as you were talking about some of that.
So
experience.
Your mom loved her job, and and I think my kids saw how much I love my job, but they ran away from education, right? I mean, I have a daughter who's a business entrepreneur and a son who's a software engineer. They ran from education. They didn't want anything to do with it when I brought it up. Hey, why don't you be a teacher for a while? No way, no way. So you chose not to be in education. And did you think about, hey, because you're a great communicator, you have you seem to build relationships extremely well. Two extremely important things for a teacher or educator. So, but you didn't choose education. Did you think about it?
I really didn't. And as I'm reflecting on it in this moment, I wonder if there's just an element of, as kids, it's just fun to be kind of stubborn. And, if you see your parents doing one thing, you're like, all right, I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to do something else. In growing up, I had a type of brain. I thought I was going to go into engineering. I ended up going and starting my career being a software developer. And then that ended up transitioning into, now I do marketing consulting work. That's what I do for my full-time job. This is purely a hobby. This is something I do for fun. But education really wasn't something that I went into. In saying that, or I thought about going into, in saying that, a lot of the aspects that you've talked about, and that what I've seen from my mom as far as being able to have an impact on people, it might not be directly through education, but as I continue to age and get older, I find myself drawn to, I wonder what, being a coach would be like, or I wonder if there's opportunities for me to still impact people, especially young people. And so I think there still could be possibilities. I am curious on your thoughts about the state of education. And I would say, I'm not super involved in this, but it seems like the trends are that less people are going into education. I think it's kind of built up to be this very sort of difficult and thankless job. What are some of your perspectives on just the state of education, people becoming teachers right now?
Well, you're right. There is a shortage of teachers right now, and it's a tough job. I don't want to, sway that or, act like it's not. Teaching is an extremely difficult job. I mean, you do deal with some tough kids, some kids that have special needs, or kids with disabilities, or kids with discipline issues. You also deal with some difficult parents, and you see on social media, and I even watch them and laugh at them, are people, talking about, or they have little skits about how they have to deal with administrators that don't like that, that don't support them, or parents that come in and are all upset about different things. I hope young people, when they're thinking about, because a lot of kids, when I was a kid, we grew up playing teacher, and having a little classroom. And I hope that doesn't stop because we need great teachers in our system. And I will tell you, the great majority of kids are amazing kids. They're not discipline problems. I'm amazed by this generation, the kids graduating today, they're very smart. They're very tech savvy, of course. I mean, they can do more things from their hand with their phone than I could do with everything, all the resources I had as an 18-year-old. They're going on to great schools, or they're going in the military, or they're going right to the workforce, or they're going to a tech school, and they're successful, and they're very bright, and they're very ambitious, and they're very community minded, and they're very world minded. They know more than what I ever did. And people don't understand too that our graduation rate in the 60s and 70s were, about 50 to 60% of our kids graduated from high school, and very small percentage, like 3 or 4%, even went on to college. You take that today, where over 90% of our kids graduate from high school, and 50, 60, 70% of them are going on to a 2 or a 4-year school. Our kids, we're turning out more engineers, more medical doctors than any time in history. Our education system is extremely successful. People try to point to test scores. Test scores are, first of all, there's high expectations where there should be, but it's tough to, compare our test scores to world test scores when we test everybody in the United States. Every child they may have a disability where they have an IQ of like 60, or they may, be gifted at 140. We test everybody. And when, you see us compared to Asia or Europe, they don't. And they don't always test everybody. And we have more poverty than a lot of European countries, and a lot more kids coming from situations that are extremely difficult. And our educators are amazing. I hope I hope more people choose to go into the profession, because, like you said, you're going to make an impact. Some people question, hey, am I making an impact today? If they're sitting in an office, or, working with a bunch of colleagues, but if teachers never ask that question, am I making an impact today? They know for a fact that they're making an impact on those kids. And so it's a tough job. It is a tough job, but I will tell you, the great majority of kids are great. The great majority of parents that I worked with were amazing and supportive, and they wanted to do what's right for teachers. The great majority of administrators were supportive of their teachers. We need to work on pay a little bit, of course. My son, the software engineer, when he came out of college, he was making probably twice or 3 times what, my average teacher salary was in my district. When you're working for, the public and all your funds, a public school, your job is paid by tax dollars. It's tough. So, but we need to work on that a little bit. But the job itself and working with kids is an amazing opportunity for people. So I hope they choose to consider it, and don't always believe everything that happens on social media. And what you see.
Like all stories, certain chapters have to come to an end. For you entered into retirement a couple of years ago, right?
Yes. 2 years ago.
I'm curious about, right now I'm actually doing a series on my show, and I'm just kind of exploring. I'm calling the series "What Are We Working For?" And I'm just exploring, the role that work plays in people's life. And one of the things that I'm exploring and talking to people about is this idea of retirement. And, I'm curious for you, what was that process and transition like? And then I'd love to hear a little bit more about, in my eyes, from what I know a little of you, is that your version of retirement is maybe different than the traditional version of retirement. So talk about this whole retirement transition and what that's been like.
Well, I failed miserably. So I'm hoping that I really have. I'm awful at retirement, and everything I've done has not gone well. So I should, and I will. I'm gonna try to listen to your series on this and learn some things. I retired in July of 2 years ago, and a dream, right? My wife and I bought a beautiful cabin in the Tennessee mountains, beautiful view. I had dreams of I could overlook the Big South Fork National Park, and I walked to trails within, so I could walk to the national park and then walk on trails. And I had dreams of sitting on my deck and the view, just sipping hot coffee. And I don't even drink coffee, but this was my dream, right? So I just enjoying a quiet life and traveling, and that lasted a few weeks. And then, I figured out I love to hike on vacations and stuff. We'd go to Colorado, we'd go to Tennessee, we'd go all over the place hiking. And but I figured out a hike was just taking a walk in the woods. So and it was really got to be just a workout, which was fine. I kept doing it, and I enjoyed the hikes and being in nature, but and finishing the hike and feeling good about that. But I rarely sat on the deck, even though it was a beautiful view. We'd have beautiful sunsets, and look at that. I'd take a picture, I'd send it to my kids, and I'd go back and watch TV. And and then cabin life, I built with carpenter bees and bats and bears, and so they tell you that you should try something out before you jump in and do it. And so I should have rented a cabin, but we ended up, Tennessee life, even though it's a beautiful state and a good tax state, but we ended up selling the cabin, coming back. We moved away from my mother. My wife's mother was dealing with dementia, so we split them up. My daughter with our grandchildren were in Quincy. We split them up. We drive back and forth a lot, but we were just on the road all the time. So we moved back. While in Tennessee, I tried a couple jobs. I officiated basketball. That was the first one I tried. I was awful at that. So I was fine with the people yelling, and that's Tennessee is a extremely polite people. How y'all doing? God bless you, and inviting me to church and everything. But when you're in basketball and you're officiating a basketball game, not the case. They were just like nice. Everybody else. Oh yeah, they were not so nice. So, but that was fine. That didn't bother me. Just I learned that it was a lot different than I'd rather coach. Be on the sideline and work in the plays, and but another real short area. And then I drove bus for a while for disabled people and people that needed that. And I really loved that job. And but then when we moved back, I left that job. I got here. I tried. I was a ramp person at an airport, and I worked with a bunch of young people, even younger than you, and great people. But I had an opportunity to go back into education, so I left that job, and then but then I decided not to take that job in education for a lot of different reasons. But I was not going to be the right person for that job, so I told the district, hey, you need to find someone with a different skill set. And then I tried dealing blackjack for a while, but I will tell you that that was fun working with people and taking their money. But it was the shift was like I would go in at 8 o'clock and I would be done at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And for an old guy, even in the Army, we woke up at like 4 o'clock. I wasn't getting done with my job at 4. So I did leave that. And so I feel I have to do something. I feel my wife and we do travel a little bit and we do enjoy that, but I do feel that I'm going to have to continue to work for a while just for my own contentment. I don't know why. I got two pretty good pensions. I got, we have money in the bank. We have, our grandchildren don't take all of it. So but I still, I don't know what it is, but I've worked since I was 14 years old, and I feel so much better after working a week and having the weekend off. Weekends are, hey, all right, I got Saturday off. I could have the whole freaking week off, but when I did that, I didn't enjoy it. So it's kind of funny how good you feel after working, or good I feel after working a week, and then I've got that Saturday and Sunday to do whatever I want. I don't know. I got to listen to your podcast.
Well, the version of retirement that you are talking about is a version of retirement that appeals a lot more to me than the traditional idea of retirement. In some ways, I've kind of adopted, I want to bring things that I think sound appealing about retirement, and I want to, like, how can I bring that into my life now? So one of those was travel. Well, my wife and I have spent the last 2.5 years living in a van that we built, traveling the country. We've been to we're in Alaska right now. This is where we're staying for the winter. Again, we're from Michigan originally, so these are all new experiences. But I find myself, I don't know, I enjoy having a sense of purpose about my days, and maybe my work will look different as I continue to age and get older, but I like doing something. I like trying new things. I like learning new things. I like challenging myself. To me, like that sounds like a blast to just go try a bunch of different roles. You're a blackjack dealer. You're a referee. Those would be things that, I don't know, that sounds like a version of retirement that sounds really appealing. I just can't imagine one day saying, all right, I'm done working, and then maybe spending 30 years of my life, kind of, not doing anything, but not working anymore. I don't know. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that.
Yeah, obviously it didn't work for me. So, but I didn't have a hobby. My wife and I talk about that, some of my friends, yeah, they're doing a little better at it than I am. The relaxed atmosphere and taking on traveling. You follow them on social media. They're taking a lot more extended trips than what I took, and so I think they're really enjoying that. So I think you just got to do what's right for you in those situations, and we'll continue to press through, and I don't know what's next on my list, so we'll see.
All right, well, I'll be excited to hear what is next. Before I let you go, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, which was August 8th of this year was a pretty cool day. I believe that was Roy Does a Favor Day. Tell us about that day.
Yeah, so it was I was done with jobs, I guess, and or in between jobs, I should say. So I must have been a little bored, and I really do enjoy just doing things for people. So I just went online and I said, hey, and I have, it's nothing like you or other social media, but I have a pretty good following. And I said, I'll do a favor for you, and whatever you want. And I thought, and I joked around with my wife, we always see the people with a sign on the street, give me $1, I need it for a meal, or I need it for my family. Originally, I thought I would just get like a stack of $1 bills, and I would go out there and I would give them to people, have a sign up saying, here's $1, enjoy your day. I'm giving you $1. But I thought maybe I would end up in jail doing that. I didn't know for sure if that was legal or not. So I didn't really want to do that. So then I got online. I said, yeah, August 8th, Roy does a favor day. And I said, whatever you want. I live in the Quad Cities, which is Davenport, Moline, Rock Island, and Illinois and Iowa, Bettendorf. And I have several friends here. I said, you need me to, I see people on social media all the time saying, hey, I need someone to take me to the grocery store. I need a ride here. I need someone to watch my dog or whatever. I was open for anything that day. And so I had several people reach out and ask for things. I wrote a lot of letters. I said, if your son or daughter are in the military and, I love mail call in the military. I said, hey, I'll write a letter to them, thanking them for their service. And so wrote some of them. I wrote some to our kids that were still in the school district when I was there, that are in college now. So I wrote some letters to some college kids. And so I wrote a lot of letters and did a few things for people. It was a blast. It was a fun day. I think, I think I will be doing that again. When it comes up as my memory on Facebook, I'll do that again. So and a lot of people took advantage of it. Not took advantage of it, but I think it was an opportunity for them to see and connect with me again. And I had a great time doing that. Talked to a bunch of old friends again, and I had a good time. It's I would encourage anybody who has a little time to offer that up. And it's all right to ask for things on social media, on Facebook or whatever. But it really does, when you do something good for someone else, that's worth a lot more to me than, getting a present sometimes, opportunity to help someone else out.
Well, I think it's awfully special, and I think it's a cool idea, one that I'm inspired by, and I think it speaks to the person that you are. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Roy, so thank you for sitting down with me and spending some time. During our conversation, you said a good teacher is an amazing asset, and I think that applies to people who work in education. I think that also just applies to people in the military, people who have life experience who can be teachers and share their perspective. So I felt like you were in some ways a teacher today, and I appreciate that and I value it. So thank you for sharing your time with me.
Ed, thank you. And like I said, I'm already a fan. I've been on, so even though this is a side gig, I think you're excellent at it. So I appreciate you inviting me on. I had a great conversation and I appreciate it. And I can tell Jean that she owes me a favor now. So.
Hey, thanks for tuning into my conversation with Roy this week. If you enjoyed it, a couple things you can do to help support the show and spread conversations like the ones that we have here would be, number one, take a couple seconds just to leave a rating or review on the podcast platform that you are listening on. And number two, share the conversation. Send it to someone who you think would enjoy hearing some of the thoughts and perspectives and stories from Roy. I would appreciate that. You'll be helping to spread meaningful conversation, and that's important. See you next time.